She's one of the artists defining contemporary Australian dance. Award-winning choreographer Lucy Guerin is known for her minimalist work that explores the body's relationship to space, rhythm, and other people. For over 20 years, her Melbourne-based company has pushed the boundaries of dance. Two of her pieces are currently being performed at France's Chaillot National Dance Theatre as part of the event Go Australia, an immersion into Australian culture. We're excited to have her here in the studio. Lucy Guerin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
What does it mean to you to be participating in this show? Is Australian culture an important part of your identity?
Absolutely. It's a very important part of my identity. I have lived there all my life, apart from a 7-year stint in New York. So I feel that gave me a real sense of what being Australian and working in Australia is. And to be part of this Australian focus at the Chaillot is just, it's like a dream come true, really, because so many of my heroes as a young dancer and choreographer have been presented in this incredible space.
And as you said, you spent 7 years in New York before you returned to Australia, and you founded your dance company in Melbourne in 2002. The opening clip that we saw was from a show, New Retro, that's somewhat of a retrospective from your over 20 years of work. How would you describe your philosophy as a choreographer?
Well, I think it's changed a little bit over the years. As a maker, I used to go into the studio and choreograph every step first and then teach it to the dancers in my very early years. But now my process is much more about really collaborating with the dancers and really letting my time in the studio with them lead the work almost. So quite often I'll have an idea in my mind of what I'm going to do, but then something will happen in the studio that will lead me in a different direction. So it's very important to me to be attuned to the present moment and to be attentive to the possibilities so that the work doesn't become predictable.
Yeah, you've become more spontaneous.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at one of the pieces showing at Chaillot. Pendulum is a 2021 collaboration with the Australian experimental composer Matthias Schack-Arnott. Lucy, I found this piece so mesmerizing. How did the two of you come up with it?
Well, Matthias approached me about wanting to make a work with a pendulum, and he thought that it would have a lot of possibilities for choreography and for movement and dance. And so, you know, we chatted about it, and then we decided that it would be more effective on quite a large scale. So we have 39 pendulums and 8 dancers. And it really just grew from experimenting with what the possibilities were between the dancers and the pendulums and what really was their relationship. And so I think we got to the point, or for me, I feel that the sense of gravity, the sense of time is really, really important to the work. And also the fact that the dancers are manipulating the pendulums, but also they have to respond to them. So there's this kind of relationship between them of control, but also succumbing to the inevitability.
Yeah, you mentioned timing. This piece really made me think about alignment and how timing has to be perfect, or one thing could kind of throw it all off. Are those themes you had in mind as well? And was this technically challenging?
Technically very challenging in terms of the creation of the pendulums, because each pendulum, it's made from a brass bowl, and inside of it there's a speaker and a light and a sensor, so that when you touch the bell, it triggers sound. And so it really was a process of experimentation to see what we could actually do with the project. And technically for the dancers, it's not. It was my choice to keep the movement fairly pedestrian and simple, and just responding to gravity and pattern and movement. But it takes a lot of focus because, just to get the patterns lined up and to get the timing right, the pendulums can be quite wayward sometimes. So.
Yeah, we feel the presence of the dancers, but the pendulums are kind of the stars
Yes.
in this show. Classic ballet, which you are trained in, uses dance as a way to tell a story. Some modern choreographers continue to see it that way, but I believe you've said that narrative isn't so important to you in your work. Why is that?
I guess I've never really felt that dance was a really effective way of telling a story for me. I feel like it's an art form that can communicate on so many levels. It involves movement. It can create incredible tone and mood on the stage. It involves the intellect and visual sense and sound. It can create a very complex communication to an audience, and I guess that's just where my interest really lies, is that ability to synthesize a lot of different senses at once.
Let's take a look at your other piece at Chaillot. It was commissioned by the Australian Ballet in 2022 for the Dance X Festival. Let's take a look at dancers Samantha Hines and Lillian Steiner in How to Be Us. Lucy, I believe you said that this piece represents an ideal way of being in the world. Can you explain how?
Well, with this work, it begins with a kind of an external control by, I guess, an outside force, which is me, the choreographer. So the material is very set, and the dancers are very much in unison and in time, and which is one way of being. I guess it relates to what I was saying about my philosophy of creating work, because as the work develops, the mode of making changed. So I began to introduce tasks that the dancers complete themselves, so that more of them is involved, more of their own choices are involved in the choreography. And by the end, it's completely improvised, so that it begins with that sort of control of the choreographer and then develops into a strong agency by the individual dancers.
What are some of the tasks that you gave them?
So one of the tasks is I give them a verbal instruction. So it might be like a storm is coming, or and then I give them a certain number of counts in which ridiculously to try to do that action. So the movement is comes from them, but then it sort of has to be within this quite strict timing, and then I give them another instruction, and so it sort of becomes these links of very precise but different to each other.
And your work is very gestural. There's a lot of arm and hand movement. Is there a reason that you're sort of drawn to those parts of the body?
I don't know. People comment on that. I think I do notice that I have a lot of nervous energy in my fingers. Like that's where a lot of my emotions kind of seem to bubble out. And I just feel like there's a lot of possibilities in the arms and the legs that are, not just in the arms, which the legs can become more predictable in a way. They're not as fluid. I love legs too, don't get me wrong.
So all of the body parts have,
Yeah,
have
I
their
like
good
them all.
sides.
Yeah.
You've also noted that there's a big gender imbalance between choreographers and dancers. All of the biggest dance companies are run by men, while most dance students are female. It's probably hard to answer this, but do you have any sense of why that is?
I don't really know why it is, but I think that I think a lot of times men come to dance later, and that often women start as young girls and they start in ballet, and there's a real sense of discipline and obedience often in certain types of training, whereas men come later, I think, and they have to be quite strong-willed in some ways too, because I think it's still like this, actually, speaking with some of my dancers, but to be a man in dance, as a teenager, you have to really want to do it, because it's not, well, in Australia anyway, it's not the norm. So perhaps there is more confidence, that men have more confidence.
Yeah, they miss the obedience training, I guess.
Yeah, they miss the obedience training. But, I don't really know. But I think it's something that we're very, very aware of now, and that it is being addressed. I think people are really working hard to change that.
Yeah, well, and you are certainly a wonderful example of a strong female choreographer. Lucy Guerin, thank you again so much for joining us today. A reminder that Pendulum and How to Be Us are showing through Saturday at the Chaillot National Dance Theatre as part of Go Australia. We'll end with a clip of another piece from that event, Castillo, from Australian choreographer Prue Lang. Thank you so much for watching. There's news coming up after this.
Double take, planet rock a show stop. She said, baby, let's go. Let's go. In the club with the homies, trying to get a little beat.